Okay, want to welcome you guys to another edition of Can
Can
We
We Talk?
Can We Talk? Yes,
Yes.
our R&B podcast. So
Can We Talk is a R&B podcast for R&B fans. We're here to talk about R&B.
that's great. Yes, I mean, and some people might say, well, what about hip hop? Does it not fall in and stuff? But it's yeah, we'll cover music, but as Omar said, primarily R&B.
Yeah,
What
I
is
mean, hip
great?
hop is actually born from R&B. It's
Yeah,
another branch of R&B. So we'll talk about it here and there, but the focus is R&B.
yeah, and what is great, we're coming from different perspective. I'm here based in the UK in England, while Alma is out in the States. So it is great
Yes.
that we can just have different perspectives, but a shared common love for music and stuff. But on today's show, we had a couple of things we wanted to talk about, but I think, what did you think we should talk about today?
Well, if you don't mind, I would actually like to congratulate Anita Baker. I saw your post the other day.
Oh, yeah.
She actually she actually successfully uh, retained her recordings, her masters,
Yes.
which is very very rare for an artist. And I'm so happy. She inspires me. That's gangster. Like to be able to go back and get your music back, and it's she has contributed so much to R&B music and soul and jazz, and a lot of these artists have, and I was happy for that news. Um, yeah, what were your thoughts on it?
Unlike, hers is very different from, say, Taylor Swift, who, and actually Taylor Swift sent her a congratulation message on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw that.
But she stopped touring. I said to people, don't stream my music because I don't
Right.
get anything from it. And she said she's retired from the plantation, and she was using those words.
Yeah.
But what is strange is that when Prince was using the word slave back in the day, I didn't understand what he was talking about. I was like, why is he calling himself a slave and the artist and stuff? And it's not until I've been doing this stuff to realize, wow, you know, and I put it when I interviewed Donald Jones, and I said, so is it like going into a supermarket, a Walgreens or Tesco's here in the UK, buying ingredients, going home, baking a cake, and the supermarket saying, we still own the cake, even though you baked it and you got the ingredients. But
Right.
because you walked into our shop, we have ownership of that cake and how much you eat, and whoever eats it. And then so it was harder for me to understand about that. So the fact that she didn't have to pay for them back, she went on strike, and I think Warner Brothers, through Elektra, had to respect the legacy that she's had, and the fact that Sony had decided to make some changes, and I think a lot of them, the pressure has been on them. So hopefully
Yeah,
that
I think this is
inspires.
a catalyst. Yeah, I believe this is going to be a catalyst. I think that there are more artists from older generations that are going to try to follow in her footsteps. And going back to your analogy with the or metaphor with the cake,
Yeah,
just imagine if in some cases you're actually creating out of thin air these
yeah,
ingredients. There's one thing to already have something that's established, but when you're literally coming up with fresh new ingredients that gives your cake a specific taste, and you have worked so hard to come up with those ingredients, and then it's just mass produced and you get nothing, it's 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 insulting, and it's soul crushing,
yeah,
and so I'm happy for her. And it's funny when you brought up Prince, he did have slave on his, the reason I think it was a different attitude then, because Prince still was kind of in his coming off of his heyday, and we kind of looked at him as I mean, he was such a big star. He had everything you could imagine. He was so rich. And so when he was calling himself a slave, a lot of us was looking at him like, hey, you're living you got like several mansions. You got these, you're pretty much the male version of a diva. Like you just have everything. You have everything
mm,
at your fingertips. And yet you're telling us that you're oppressed, and it was kind of hard to digest. And I was very young at that time, so I really did not know.
yeah,
But I totally understand. As you know, he actually eventually, before he passed the year before, watch out, Anita. A year before, he got his master's, and before his death, and he was celebrating it. He had his master's, which was a great thing. It's always a great thing to have your babies come home and you own it. And I think this new generation has more of a mentality of ownership.
Yeah.
It would be great if this generation of artists could fight for the older artists that couldn't fight when in their time, to fight for them, and also join hands and with Anita Baker and Taylor Swift and others who are trying to fight for ownership, because there are artists like George Clinton and Sly Stone that don't receive a dime from the music that is being sampled and used in commercials and reinvented over and over again. Just a lot of sad stories. So yeah,
Wow.
congratulations, Anita.
Yeah, congratulations, Anita. So with that, what's the topic of the show today?
Well, today I thought it'd be interesting to retrospectively look over your year. I mean, this has been a big year for you. The growth of Halftime Chat. I mean, you've done a lot of great interviews that have shed a lot of light on a lot of the artists and producers and people involved in the industry that we've loved and over the years. And I thought it would be kind of cool to just kind of, for me at least, to share, or both of us to share our favorite interviews um, over the course of the year. I have quite a few because I had to narrow it down to five because for the essence of time, or for the sake of time.
Yeah.
But no, it was just so informative because these were people that a lot of them we may have not known about, and some of them we only had one side of the story. Or some people were the blame for certain breakups. So it's a lot of different scenarios that we've had a lot of light shined on through these interviews that you share with us. So
Yeah. Well, I've always actually wanted to do that because I do get to respond to comments, um,
mhm.
but it's not enough to be able to say, well, how I felt during a particular interview, and how this kind of interview made me feel. So, um, as a host, it's hard to say my top favorites, but I could say the interviews that I have fun memories of. So I don't want any of my
Okay.
guests to feel like, what
Right.
about me? What about me? But
Right. No, well, this is just part one because I'm sure
yeah,
you have so many, and you have so many coming up. Like you have a
yeah,
lot coming up. So this is just part one. We'll probably do a couple of these because
yeah.
it's
Okay.
a few that I think that kind of need highlighting because they were kind of groundbreaking, and not groundbreaking, but just it really moved things for me. It changed a lot of my opinions on certain things and certain people, etc.
Okay. Well, do you want to go? Who's your number? Who would you start up with? Number. Want to start off with then?
All right. So I'm going to start actually with probably one of the first. I believe this is the first one that I actually came across when I found your halftime chat channel, um, Dawn Robinson. And this is
Ah,
not in any particular
yeah.
order. It's just, I'm reading off, what I wrote, jotted down real quick. But Don Robinson's interview for me was a redemption interview. I think it was needed. I think we never really got a full understanding of what happened and transpired within In Vogue. And for so long, I blamed Dawn. I was like, why can't you just, you know, get with the program? Like, stop messing it up for all of us. Just quiet down and, be the fourth member. I thought it was her. I thought she was the reason for the breakup. I thought she was, the quote unquote bitch or the one with the attitude, the diva.
Mm,
And I think after the interview, she showed me that it's not things are not always what they appear. A lot of
yeah.
it's business decisions, and um, I think for her situation, she was going against it. She had so many people against her. She was the one
Yeah.
trying to emancipate the group and say, "Hey, we have had success on this first album. We should go in and renegotiate." And so for me, like I said, I think that a lot of the criticisms that she's probably received over the years has not been warranted. And
Yeah.
that interview, and that's like the first time I've seen a couple of interviews, but that was the first one that I actually saw her. I saw the vulnerable side. I saw the human side of her, not
Yeah.
the artist. I saw her, you know, playing with the camera and trying to adjust it and everything.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it was kind of cute. I like to see that. And that's what I like about a lot of your interviews are very raw and real, and you get to actually see the human side. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of things. Oh, and also, you know, that some of the things were shocking to find out, like the members were not making much money
Yeah.
because they were so high glossy and glamorous
Yeah.
in the videos, and everything looked so luxurious. And, you know, to find out they're only making 2 cents per record sold
Yeah.
was absolutely shocking. That was to me worse than the TLC story.
Yeah.
And people forget the impact En Vogue had on other girl groups.
Yeah.
So it was a very. Is there anything you can share that from that interview that
Yeah, you know,
you
at the
remember?
time, Dawn was interviewing with everybody. You know, if you had 2 subscribers, she would say, "Yep, I'll give you an interview." So, and so, um, it was like, okay, how to make the interview different because she was sharing a lot with everybody. But most people she was interviewing was on IG Live, so it was very much live. And she's saying, "Hey, you know, she had her regulars who would tune in." And I realized, you know what, I couldn't concentrate if I had to do it live. I needed to, you know, have the format where it's no distraction and we talk. And the one thing I do remember is prior to that, my interviews were generally an hour, you know, at most. And I'd seen that Dawn could have, you know, normally, you know, she had a lot to say. So I was very determined to really make sure we don't exceed an hour. 2.5 hours later, it was, you know, it was 2.5 hours. And, but I will say that that's when I'd never been shocked in my life to hear everything about 2 cents a record and, you know,
Yeah.
the whole infighting. So, um, yeah, I look back with Dawn with memory, fond memories, especially talking about Lucy Pearl, the
Oh
situation with
yeah.
her losing her house, and very vulnerable in sharing that type of information, you know. And in a way, she's the one. There's a clip that I put out there which was about who was to blame for Dawn leaving. Was it Sylvia Rohn, who was the head of Electro Records?
I remember
Was it
that.
Terry, who had a solo album, who it didn't go well, and who was pushing for Dawn not to have her own? Or was it Dawn? And people are split. Um, you know, so and I try not to get to one side, but I could just imagine how everyone thought
Yeah.
they could, you know, try to play the Powerball, and it just failed on all of them. And
It's best to
so,
just let people come up with their own opinion after hearing the
yeah,
stories.
yeah,
Um, and then I also, you brought up Lucy Pearl and the dynamic, and it sheds some light on Raphael Sadiq's personality, or this is allegedly. But you know, I kind of heard some things, but that really was shocking. I actually years ago I was helping develop a group that had 2 male members and a female member, and it was interesting that she brought that up,
mm,
that the female member is going to always get the attention, because with this particular group, I won't say their name, but that was such a big dynamic that it was a hurdle they could not get over. They were the
mm,
males, when they would hit stage, the focus would go to the female singer,
mm,
and people just kind of focused on the female singer, and their ego could not get over the fact that they felt, you know, they were more talented, etc. They were writing songs, but the female was drawing the attention. And
mm,
it really kind of shown that there's other dynamics that the audience does not know that's going on, especially in Vogue. I'm pretty sure that, you know, with Dawn, she was a focal point a lot of times with
yeah,
In Vogue. So there was so many different dynamics that
yeah,
could have been used to divide them.
yeah,
And with the girls, the other ladies having relationships with the producers, it was just
yeah,
it was recipe for eventual disaster.
yeah. No, you're right.
So, all
So
right.
if I was to go with say one of my five, it would
Yeah.
have to be Donnell Jones.
Ooh, okay.
I think when I look back at the interview, it's he was probably the most comfortable of any of my guests.
Yeah, he seems
The
so
way
at ease with you. I've
he
never seen him that
leaned
way.
in and he was just relaxed and he was smiling and he was going through his story and there was nothing he didn't he held back on. It was and we probably could have gone on for 3 hours if not that his publishers kept calling to say you've got somebody waiting for you. So we did about an
Right.
hour and a half. But I look back at that and I watch anytime I watch it and I watch how he was leaning in and excited and stuff. And that was good because I didn't know as much about him as I would say Joe or something. Like, I bought one or two of his albums, but I had to rely on. So the community was sending me questions, and I remember you sent me some questions as well. So I was able to use that to ask him, but I realized that also distracted me from being able to just do my normal flow in interview. But he was like an open book, and it was just really a fun interview.
Yeah, it was a fun interview to watch too. I like to see that the guest at ease and be like you said, being an open book. And he seemed very laid back and willing to, he was game for the interview.
Yeah,
And I think we did get a different perspective on him. And he actually had some vulnerable moments to even admit that, he felt. I mean, a lot of his performances, he was kind of shy, and I didn't know that
yeah,
about him. I would have never guessed that
yeah,
he was kind of I won't say an introvert, but he
yeah.
wasn't.
He said he was an introvert.
Oh, it was. Oh, okay. Well, he
Yeah,
was
he
an
said
introvert.
he was an introvert. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I just
yeah.
would, and that is just so interesting to think
And the
that you could
hat,
be an introvert
he
and
was always
that.
with a hat. He was always wearing a hat
Right,
because he
right,
went bald.
right. So he really pretty went there. He revealed a lot of vulnerable things, which is cool.
Yeah,
Like it makes you as a listener, you know, find things. Oh, this guy is very relatable.
yeah.
So I enjoyed that for you. Um, I would go with my next interview that really I think was interesting for me was Jimmy Love Jenkins.
Oh, okay.
The I think he was
Uptown
the guy from
Records.
Uptown.
Yeah,
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 exactly. He successfully painted like a great picture of the era, and he was such a character himself. Like
yeah,
he was just a character. It was like very animated and like in character with the whole like hip hop mogul gangster
yeah.
thing, and it was just kind of cool to watch. But his description of the time period, like he kind of like was like, I'm gonna tell a story my way, and
Yeah.
telling you about Harlem, and it was just really cool. And I missed that kind of like attitude from people, like So
Yeah.
the things he revealed about Uptown and its birth, and the different deals and things that they went through with Capitol and all that stuff was very interesting. I didn't know. Um, I'm trying to think the whole thing with I'll Be Sure, and it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Christopher
yeah.
Williams, he spoke on that. So yeah, that was one that really resonated with me.
Yeah, you
What did you
know
think
what?
about that?
He did tell a story, and he was going to go through his story, and I wasn't prepared for it, and but he was very honest, especially not just with Christopher Williams, but with Andre. Like when we talked about
Right.
the Uptown to Motown, he said, "Yeah, Andre lost his mind in that, this wasted of money and stuff." And yeah, he was, and then he talked about the industry about, I mean, he exaggerated some figures about the fact that, you're not going to get a Jill, record label's not going to pay money for Jill Scott, as talented as she is, because it's all about
Right.
streams. He just been as honest as it was, and yeah, it was, he was
He gave a lot of gems during that
yeah.
interview.
Yeah, Puffy, the
I think a
young
lot of
lion.
his
He said Puffy, the young
yeah,
lion was he wanted the throne. Yeah. He
right.
said,
So
"I've got to be careful what I say because I might need to get some money from him." Yeah.
yeah, he was definitely a character. He was
Yeah. Well, with that, I mean, if I go to my next one, it would be probably one of my first interviews, and this was Nitty Green. So he was from the group Rift,
Riff.
and
I love
he was in a Lean on Me movie, and I didn't realize that if you think about the scene about the boy singing, it was his story. The fact that he was called out and says, "You need to sing the school song," and he didn't know it, but he says, "I'll sing it tomorrow," and he and his cousins and friends came up with it and stuff. But the one thing about Nitty was that he kept complimenting me throughout the interview, like, "Man, that's a good question. Man, you're good." And see, this is my third. He was my third guest, and I didn't realize because I was just curious about what he was doing. So I was thinking, "Wow,
Right.
what did it sound like?" But to him, it was. And that's when I started to notice that I was doing something different because of how he responded to the questions.
Right.
And he was laughing. I was relaxed. We were joking, and I was listening. And he told us about being blacklisted when the record label says, "Look, you did your, they did their first album, which was pop, went gold, and they said, okay, what do you guys want to do next? Oh, we want to be like Jodeci." So they did their second album, which didn't do well. And they said, okay, look, you've had your fun. You've got a little publishing. Now we want to do, a third album. We've got David Foster. We're going to get Diane Warren. We're going to go big time, do Boyz II Men kind of stuff. But the three of the five said no, and we still want to be in the hood. So we, take that. We don't want that. And that's how they lost their deal and got blacklisted. And that was how Riff just disappeared. And he was, just hearing that story. He went on to be the second phase of Men of Vision, and now they've got the Rift journey back. But as I said, as a person, he was the most animated, the most fun, and really gave me.
Yeah, he was a character.
Yeah, and gave me that sense of I'm actually doing a good job based on how he was giving me feedback. Yeah.
Well, I think that with him and a lot of people is that I think it's you actually listen to hear, you know what I'm saying? So I think when you're asking a question, it's genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
And you want to know, and you from the answer, then the answer it gives you time to ponder on it and what direction you're going to go, as opposed to I have these lists of questions, I got to get these lists of questions. And I think that he was refreshed because you were just genuinely curious about what transpired his life and how it affected him and things like that. So and I was a big fan of Riff. I was so happy to actually see that interview because I love their first album and I had never got their second album, but I loved their first album. I was wondering what happened to them because I felt like in my mind they could rival Boyz II Men. Like I felt like they came out around the same time. They had beautiful songs on that first album. And I know the second album they went a little bit more hip hop soul.
Judy's Got a
I
Boyfriend.
like that too. But and they had a great remake on there. I think it was they had an Isley Brothers remake on there that was really good. It was a couple of good songs on there that I had, but I hadn't had the album. And to hear what happened, because I kept thinking, why would you stop then? And to get the actual story, I'm so thankful that you gave me an opportunity to get back in touch with those guys as far as like what happened. So that was cool. Especially now that they have new music coming out, they can continue their legacy. Let's see next. You know what? I'm gonna stay on the whole group thing, drama thing, and I'm gonna go with Sean Rivera.
Oh, okay.
From As Yet.
Yeah, a good friend.
I think it was just so weird. I mean, how quick he came back with the clap back, like, hey, I have a story to tell. I want to tell my story. After he saw your interview
with As
Yet, he was like, oh no, I have to tell you. So it was really fun. But what I did, something about Sean connected with me because he seemed very affected emotionally. Like it wasn't like it seemed like he felt hurt by the fact that they didn't honor his contribution. And his story kind of resonated with me because I think he said he was a high achiever in school and he had things set up like he was going to college, and he gave that up to be in the group. And I had a similar story where I kind of gave up a certain path for music, and he felt like I could sense that he wondered, he was, and within himself at least, that he was wondering had he made the right choice,
Yeah.
especially how it all ended. And so yeah, when he kind of came back and he was giving his story about what really transpired and what he contributed to that remake, hard to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You could just kind of tell, like, it must have been some really hurt feelings in the group all around.
Yeah.
And I found it really interesting when he started kind of walking us through what happened, and I was able to go back to the original, well, not the original, but to the other account,
Yeah.
and kind of see how the stories, differed and were similar. And so it was kind of interesting, but I found that a very interesting and relatable story.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I found about Sean was that he was a very passionate and emotional person,
Right.
and deep, very caring about the music and everything. And but he also comes across um, as someone who doesn't brag. He doesn't need to boast that, but he
Right.
just, and so it was interesting for me to learn about his story growing up in Philly, in the rough neighborhoods and the multicultural parts of that, and being Puerto Rican in a group, a black R&B group, and how it to him, that's how life is. We're all the same. He didn't feel like he was different, but he didn't want to go into the tensions that people had from the outside about what's this, say, white guy doing in an R&B group and stuff. So he was, yeah, really, really enjoyed, and I loved his account where he talked about last night, where how his part was an accident. He said he forgot the words.
Yeah. You know what? That happens a lot, though. A lot of things there are a lot of mistakes that actually work, and they keep them, and. But when he kind of described that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
My next one would be I would go with Father MC. So so
Okay.
he was my first interview, and he'd just got onto Twitter, IG, and he probably had like 300 followers at the time, and I think this was just after Andre had no, so this was around, say, July. So Andre had just passed. He just got on IG, and I sent him a message, not DM, but just on his post. Hey, can I get an interview with you? And he says, sure. Um, Connect with my manager. And once I got the interview, I can still remember how I was sitting in our spare room, and how I got the whole place set up. And I think it was almost midnight here, and here I am interviewing, Father MC, because he had these massive hits with Jodeci, Mary, and he was Mr. Uptown, and I was like, my goodness, he was my first recorded artist sitting down there, and I thought, well, let me just understand his life and his journey, and because I didn't know where it would take me, how it was going. So that's how it just shaped. It shaped, but the fact that he gave me the chance, because afterwards I could always say, I've just interviewed Father MC. Can you give me a chance? So I'm always grateful for the fact that he said yes, because he said yes, others said yes as well. And so I always hipped him up and stuff. And he's working with Kenny's signed to his label, Kenny Terry from As Yet. So his interview would come out soon. But that's anything for Father MC, I'm always down for.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was definitely interesting. Next for me, I'm gonna go with somebody that I think kind of was controversial for some people. Brian Alexander Morgan. I really liked his vibe. Like he was just like, he was looking very unbothered. He had a cigarette in his mouth. He was just chilling.
I think it was
And
a flip.
yeah, he was honest. And he kind of looked like somebody that really just wanted to set the record straight. And, you know, I think that, he successfully did that. I was very curious as to how the whole process of how uh producing SWV's first project went, and what the techniques and the different things, because clearly there's some techniques going on, but also the fact that what transpired between the first and the second album, because as a fan I didn't know. I bought the first album and I loved the first album, and then I got the second album. It was a different sound. I was like, wait a minute. It was still a good album, but it was clearly some personnel changes. Like there was no Brian anywhere. Well, there was like one or two songs, but
Yeah.
it was kind of abrupt sonically. So pretty much, I think that his opinion on, because you did one good thing where you took out a excerpt of the whole why does Coco sing all the leads,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that it was interesting, his take on it, which was
What he called it,
wasn't it something to the,
back the winning horse. If she
yeah,
got you here
exactly,
this far, you just stay with the formula.
And that's very true. And I kind of agree with that, where I know you kind of would prefer everyone to share vocals, but I kind of feel like Coco had the money voice, and I honestly did not care much for the songs that the other girls led. So I mean, at that time.
Yeah.
So for me, I can understand where he's coming from, where he's like, yeah, well, you don't change, you don't switch it up on the audience, because they may not take to it. They may not take to these new voices. They are so familiar with Coco, and
Yeah.
all the producers wanted to work with Coco, because when they're hired on, they already have a mindset of, this is what Coco sounds like. Let me create this song. So when you hear other people saying, hey, I want to sing lead, it just kind of throws things off. But what was your take on that interview?
Yeah, so I've been just to give people an insight into this process. I've been trying to get Brian on the show for almost 6 months, and
Oh,
so these things take time, and I had to wait until he had done the Questlove podcast. So on to, because he couldn't, that was the priority. So after he had done the Questlove podcast, he finally gave me the opportunity, and we were wearing matching red sweaters and stuff, but orange sweaters. But he was starting here in his journey, because one of the things that he doesn't, I guess he didn't get from others, is that they focus on the music, the technical parts of the music, and I always like to go from, let's get you off guard and start from the beginning. How did you start? Where did you grow up? And go through that journey. And so yeah, I think though, as much, and I still chat with Brian now, and stuff. I think it did throw up a couple of things that, on reflection, I do wonder, um, with the creativity and the talent he has, why he hadn't, if SWV sort of slowed down and not gave him
right.
the tracks, not take his creativity to other artists. And that's the one thing that we never really got to, because he had all these hits and he had everything. He had the talent, but he just sort of, I think he really made so much from the first, It's About Time album,
Right.
that he almost didn't have to work. And I think, and
I
he's
kind of
almost
missed
in that.
his sound as well. Oh, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, no, I think after that, I think he had hustled so much when that album blew up, and he, got a big chunk of the money, more than them. Very probably, when you think about what Dawn said about Denny and Thomas, and Denny and Denzel, from the producers who were showing them their $20 million mansion, and they were staying in a flat that sense of, hey, he's taking all our money. And I think there was a sense that Brian was doing much better than they were, much quicker. And I think that's where that rift started and stuff. So he
Well,
was
I
good.
think that he didn't have any. I mean, they were signed to RCA and they had a
Yeah,
management company. They weren't signed to Brian. Brian was the
yeah,
hired producer.
yeah.
So he didn't really have any obligations to them in that respect. He wrote the songs, he came up with the concepts, he produced them to make them sound the way they sounded, something
Mm,
that was very unique and innovative at the time. So I'm happy that he was actually able to get some compensation, because there's so many people that have done that, put that kind of effort and energy into something and gotten nothing.
yeah,
And he did produce after that. I mean, I think in his case, it was just kind of, it may have been because I think he alluded to, some people were maybe closing some doors to him, but he
yeah,
did produce for like Eric Benet, a group called Something for the People, Layla Hathaway.
yeah,
So he did have some productions. I think it was just a case of betting on the wrong horses. That those songs, it's like once you're cold, then a lot of people won't give you opportunities. They won't, you're no longer that hot thing. And
mm,
then especially if you have such a specific sound, I remember you saying before, like SWV and Escape and Jade and Brownstone all had different sounds.
yeah,
So it would be unlikely that, Escape will call him up and say, hey, give us a SWV kind of
yeah,
song. So,
yeah,
you know, once they kind of done away with, the whole situation, it may have been hard for him to find another, unless he developed his own group,
mm,
which I think he said he started off as a solo artist. He might have been going back and forth with that too. Like, maybe I want to be an artist, maybe I don't. So,
yeah. So my second one, yeah, I've got, and it's not in any
oh,
particular order, but if I think
right.
of it, it probably would be Tammy Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing about my interview with Tammy Lucas is that I've never seen her before, other than in two videos. Is It Good to You? And the one with Tribe. And when I saw her on IG, she doesn't barely post any pictures of herself, just random stuff. And as I kept trying to post and say, can I get an interview now? I'll get a video of her singing Is It Good to You? And I'll tag her and say, hey, Tammy, can we? And one day she just says, okay, talk to my manager. And I'm like, well, once they give me a manager, that's good, because it means somebody who controls their calendar. And he eventually, said, yep, after a month or so, he eventually set it up. The day that the interview was set up, that morning I'm on IG, and it's like, it's my birthday and everyone's wishing a happy birthday. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, have they forgotten the interview? So I thought the interview was not going to take place because it was her birthday.
Her birthday, right.
But they still, they said, yep, we're going to interview. I said, but it's your birthday. And it says, no, but it's a good way of celebrating it. And you know what? I've interviewed over 50 people. That was the first time that I was starstruck. The only first and only time I've been starstruck in any of the interviews.
Mm.
I was interviewing her, and I was like pinching myself. This is really Tammy Lucas,
She's
because I
such a
didn't.
mysterious character.
Yes. So I was there saying, I'm actually, and I'm thinking, is it recording? Hope my computer's not going to break down. In my head, I couldn't enjoy the interview, because one, I couldn't believe it was happening, and two,
Mhm.
I was thinking of all the things that could go wrong. And so I missed so much stuff out. I didn't even talk about, her collaboration with Big Bub and all this back end stuff she did with Nori, and how did it? I was just just in awe in what I was in the fact that it was her, the mysterious Tammy Lucas, hearing her story, talking about music and about Harlem and how everything was. And when if she sees the deal wasn't great, she walks away. She doesn't try and negotiate. She's like, yeah, it looks a little dodgy there. I'm not going to go away. So she turned down being in a group with Uptown. She didn't sign with them. She was comfortable in her lane, and she didn't seem like anyone who had any regrets. And
Right.
and the thing is, the stuff that I didn't broadcast, all the behind the scenes stuff, when we're talking with her and her manager about how to release some of the old backing tracks and old references for Joy and Is It Good to You and Tonight's the Night, the songs that she wrote, or even Use Your Heart that she wrote for SWV, the ones that she would sing, re-releasing them. And she was like, oh, I never thought about that. So if I called her up now and says, hey, Tammy, can we have, let's get another interview, she'll be down. That's the kind of relationship that you get with some of these with a number of them. So so that's what
Cool thing. Yeah, when you got that interview, I've never seen Tammy Lucas. And I kept thinking, how did he get this interview? I've never seen her interviewed anywhere. And she's another one from that period in the 90s. I kept thinking, so when she's surely going to come out with an album? Because
Yeah, we were all
I
waiting.
loved
Yeah.
her version of Tonight's the Night.
Much better than the SWV one, yeah.
Yes, and she just has such a pleasant tone, a pretty sound, and it was so unique, very delicate, and it's just very pretty and sexy. I loved it. And it was like, so surely she's gonna have an album, like,
yeah.
And I know she did some stuff with Neptunes, and that was another opportunity. I kept thinking, what is going on here? So to get her account of what happened, and I like, her disposition. I like her vibe, that she was kind of no regrets, and she was very assertive. She was very confident, comfortable. She didn't feel like she was trying to appease anybody. That's the way it came off. That's the way it came off anyway. And that's a good way to be in this industry, because if you're not a strong person, it's, you come in, people are going to impose their opinions on you, and it breaks you down, and you think you got to appease this particular these set of ideas, and I think she went in knowing who she was, and she came out knowing who she is, and it didn't change her. So it's good to see that. So many people seem bitter or regretful, and she didn't come off that way.
No regrets at all.
So for my final, is this the final one? I think this is
it is the final one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for me, it's hard to really say one, because it's like the whole Teddy Riley saga. It's like a saga. It's just like a continuous. I love Teddy though, but it's like we gotta get you on here, Teddy, so you can tell your account. But it's I'm gonna kind of put two people side by side for me, Timmy Gatling and Mucho. I feel like there's those interviews. I might even throw Eric Williams in there, but for right now, Timmy Gatling. I really enjoyed his interview, because I had never. I was a Guy fan late on, and I had the second album, and I kept looking at the second album, and then the first album, I'm like,
me too.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
And to actually get a chance to hear this guy's side of the story, and I believe a lot of what he was saying, it just made sense.
Yeah.
He gave us a lot of interesting things that we did not know, like you can call me crazy. I had no idea that I'll Be Sure's on that.
Yeah.
I know, it's just a lot of I don't know. It's just a lot of things that he revealed, and it was a fun interview. He shed a lot of light. So how was that interview for you?
Well, he was also he's the last one I was going to pick anyway, so I can do the combined.
We're on the same page.
Okay. Yeah, so he was my third interview. So it was Father MC, it was Nitty, then it was Timmy Gatling, and so he had seen, especially he was getting to a point where people, Teddy was sharing and saying and changing the story a bit, and he felt, and I think there was pressure on family, say, look, why don't you tell your own story, especially as Versus was getting very popular. So he did about three different interviews before he agreed to interview with me, but said yes, but then went silent, and he was interviewing with other people, and they and what they were doing is they were talking about the guy, and they were talking about the albums, and so I knew that when he finally said yes, that I had to do something different. and I knew I couldn't just repeat what everyone else has done. So there were three things that I needed to know. One, I wanted to really understand the kids at work. What was it about? You know, the second was the Guy album. I wanted to know each song, what, because we don't get any credits if you get it. So
Right.
I wanted to go for each song. How was it made? So I thought for New Jack Swing fans, they would love that part. And the final part, I wanted to get a sense of how did it happen? How did you leave? You know, when he says we argued, we did this, then he cried, and it was like, wow, this is it.
Yeah.
It's gone. What do I do next? And just to
That was impactful. That was deep.
so I was speechless. I was like, yeah, I cry like a baby. I cry like a newborn baby because I was hurt. You know, that's his words, because I was hurt. I was like, wow. And you know, and as I said, the one thing you do when you interview and you know that they've interviewed other people is that you need to do something that they say, well, I haven't spoken about this. So his interview was so we had 40 minutes, so it was 2 hours. You know, he was with me for 2 hours, and he was patient throughout the whole process. And I think, yeah, and a lot of what they do is after they listen and they see how you're taking things, they appreciate. Because he was going to jump through songs, and I was like, no, no, no. I have the album. I want to go through each song in order. I don't want you to move to like we can spend a night when it's not. It's number two and stuff. So yeah, Timmy was. A lot of people did say that. Wow, we hadn't heard his story and his version, and he had nothing to lose. He owns the publishing. He owns all the publishing. He signed. He makes it. If somebody, no one else does. And I think his account, finally, about how, you know, Aaron has to, at his age, the only way he can make a living was to go on tour. And when the money isn't right, it was like Aaron decided, you know, there's no point doing this. I need to go and find a business. That's why Aaron isn't performing anymore. He's engaged with his dog business where he, you know, he helps people with with dogs out in LA. So, you know, Timmy was, yeah, really appreciate him. As I said, he's one of the people that I still would connect with and stuff.
And that's another reason why your interviews are important, because the aspiring artists that are watching can see what not to do or how to maybe maneuver differently. Because like you said, Timmy still has his publishing, whereas in the other cases, the other guys didn't have the best deal or situation, and they ended up losing their rights to certain things. And someone at Aaron's age, no, he shouldn't have to depend on getting out there and performing and doing these 50 cities tours and things. When you, as you get older, your body just can't.
And he's the main
that's
singer.
what I think about Michael. I was worried. I remember when Michael was going out for that last tour, and I kept thinking, is that the best thing he should be doing right now? I mean, I was excited that I would actually get a chance to see Michael in person, because that was my mother had, and I had never saw him. And I wanted to see the legendary, iconic Michael. But at the same time, I was like, he's kind of older now. I don't know, should he be out there? And they showed us clips of him kind of still busting out the moves. But I'm like, at what point do the artists get a chance to rest and enjoy the wealth that they've accumulated over their career? And I think we see a lot of older artists on the road now. So not to be long-winded, but that's why I say these interviews are also good, not only for the fans, but the new artists or the aspiring artists who, they can look back and say, okay, they did it this way. That'll help me navigate this.
I just remember Jimmy Love saying, yeah, the new artists have heard the stories of the Locks. They've heard the stories of the Locks. I'm like, okay, the Locks, they've heard the stories, because the more but yeah, I mean, if I had an honorable mention, it would probably be Cassandra Lucas from Changing Faces. By the time we finished, it was about an hour and 40 minutes, And I said, "Oh, really, thank you. We've been here for an hour and 40 minutes." She said, "I didn't realize we'd been there that long." That what I
Yeah.
loved about the interview was that
She was very pleasant. Yeah.
she said, she was always playing with her hair. She was always play, but she said, yes, she was always playing with her hair, which was always fun to see. But one of the things she did say was that I didn't ask questions waiting for the next one. Because she said she got used to an interview. It's like, okay, so we've got these 5 questions and we're going to ask you, as soon as you finish that, we're going to jump to the next. The questions I asked were based on her response because I'm a therapist. And as a therapist, when I'm working with my clients, it's always about being curious about them. And after I hear and understand them, then I can help treat them. So I always tell the people I supervise that you need to be curious. Forget all the stuff you learn in school. The main thing you need to be about a person is
Right.
curious. When you're curious, they open up and they share, and then you just build that picture. So it helps in this field, but generally you're curious. So
Exactly.
yeah, so it's been good because I've never had the opportunity to talk about some of the interviews. They've all been great, as I said. Some have been a little bit more challenging than the others, but they've all been, all been a great experience. And yeah, and here's to so many more and stuff.
Yes, you got a lot more coming. I'm excited. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we did say last time we were going to offer some suggestions for new music. Did you chance? I got a couple. I didn't get
Okay.
5,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I
Go
did
ahead.
come across a
List.
couple of people.
Okay.
So I know all you music fans out there. I need. So we're gonna take ourselves back. Earth, Wind, and Fire. They have a new single, and they've teamed up with a new R&B artist by the name of Lucky Day.
Oh, I saw
It's
that
called
on CNN. Yeah.
Really
The,
okay. It's called "You Want My Love," and it's kind of cool. I like it. It's kind of an update of one of their old songs, "You Can't Hide Love," I
yeah,
believe.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah. I saw.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the
So it's
performance.
kind of
Yeah.
cool to hear a new reinterpretation of it with a younger vocalist.
Mm,
So I enjoyed that. Kenny Lattimore, beautiful voice. He has a new
yeah.
song, "Pressure." It's a nice mixture of old aesthetics and new aesthetic.
Yeah.
So you'll enjoy that. And you've interviewed Pam recently. She was in a show called The Encore,
Yeah.
and the product of that show is a group called
Blueprint.
Blueprint,
Yeah.
and they do have a little EP out. So if you've been following that show, you might want to check out that EP. It has Pam is involved, Pam from Total, of course.
Mm,
Um, the Cherish sisters from the mid 2000s
okay.
group Cherish. Who else? Shamari from Black,
Mm,
uh, Left Eye's group that she managed,
yeah. Yeah.
Black. So it's a cute little EP of 6 or 7 songs.
Okay.
That's a couple of suggestions for new R&B. I just kind of want. I think we should kind of make some suggestions for the R&B fans of things to check out, because sometimes it is hard and there's a lot being thrown at you a lot
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
times, and you know. So
Yeah. No, that's really good. And please also Donnell Jones, 100% free. It's a free album,
right, free
and
album.
he just did a remake of the lead single Karma, featuring RL, Dave Hollister, Carl Thomas, and somebody called Jacquees.
Jacquees. It's
Yeah.
fire. I like it. I think that
Yeah.
they did really good with that. I'm excited for the group. I remember you telling me that uh, Carl Thomas and
Dave
Donald
Hollister
Jones and
with
Dave
Dave
Hollister are going to
Hollister.
be in a
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
I would love for them to add RL in there and the other guys in the video, like be a group.
Well, RL's do it
But
next, and so I think they,
yeah,
and they did.
but there's also the Chi-Town connection with the three. That's why they probably did
Yes,
that.
yes, yeah. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, next year we've got so much. We'll continue doing our top fives, and it's and we'll always welcome suggestions. So in your comments feed, or you can email and write in and tell us what we could do, focus on. And I know when this goes out, members of the community are going to say, "Hey, can we get on the show?" And sure, this is going to be open
Yes, yes.
to you guys to join in as well. But So for me here in the UK, I'm going to say good day.
And myself, Omar, calling from the States. We wish you a great day and join us next time on Can We Talk? We look forward to talking with you.
Okay. Take care. All right.